If you are about to have a baby, please watch this video. I wish that I heard someone tell a story like this before I had my son. The most special day turned into one of the most traumatic days of my life. I've been meaning to share this story for over a year now. I'm gonna start by saying this. Please, 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 please make sure your husband or your partner or whoever's with you is aware of who is in the room. After this incident, we will never ever let student nurses touch or help handle any our baby. So my birth experience was absolutely wonderful. It was amazing. I loved giving birth. It had been 48 hours. We were about to check out. We even got like our slip that says you can leave with your baby. The last thing they had to do before you left, cut off sensor tag on our baby's ankle and undo the clamp on his umbilical cord. So all our bags are packed. This is the last thing that needs to be done. A student nurse and a nurse walks in to do it. I was so sore from giving birth, couldn't really walk, so my husband was taking care of me. They were just standing right next to us, cutting off the little sensor tag and undoing the clamp on the umbilical cord. So we weren't really fully paying attention, having our eyes on our son is one of my biggest regrets. We're in the hospital, what's supposed to be the safest place. We noticed something was like off by the way the nurse was acting. Student nurse was doing the cutting the ankle monitor off and undoing the clamp on the umbilical cord. They didn't ask permission for the student nurse to do it. They just told us, hi, this is a student nurse. She's going to be observing today. They didn't ask if she was allowed to be in there. They just told us. They didn't tell us that she was going to be doing what the nurse is supposed to do. You could tell the nurse started kind of panicking a little bit, and she's like, we're gonna have to take him out. His umbilical cord got a little sticky. She was very like broad on what happened. Starts to leave with my son, and I said, wait, my husband is gonna go with you. I don't want my son alone. She said, it's not a big deal, like we're just going in the room right next door. And I'm like, no, my husband's gonna go. They were gone for over an hour. My husband gets back into the room without my son. I instantly started realizing something happened that was more serious than the nurse was telling us. My husband walks in and he said that the nurse said the student nurse went to go unclamp the umbilical cord clip, got too sticky and it opened, so that's why it was bleeding. Instantly tugged on it and it pulled his umbilical cord off. So instead of unclamping it, my son literally didn't have an umbilical cord, except there was maybe like this much of an umbilical cord left. It was just bleeding. They bring my son back in. They had a string tied around the skin of his belly button, cutting off his circulation underneath, like under his belly button. Around that skin was a tied string holding it. No one was telling me what was going on. The umbilical cord was gone. Nurse's story didn't really make sense. Then another nurse came back in and said that he's gonna have to have a little procedure done. They have a doctor come in, stitch up his umbilical cord because there was nothing left to be able to keep it shut. Everything just like wasn't really making sense because the story that the nurse told us just didn't line up with what we were seeing. Me and my husband go into this procedure with them. They take us in not even like a room. It was like a hallway. Oh my gosh, it was the weirdest thing. I felt like I was in a dream. It was the weirdest feeling because I could tell no one really knew what was going on because the nurse wasn't being straight up what happened and they wouldn't let us see the student nurse. We go into the procedure. It's me, my husband, and our baby. The doctor comes in to this little hallway, two nurses and the doctor. Doctor's looking, trying to figure out what he's gonna do to be able to like fix this situation because it's something you don't hear or see ever. I was bawling my eyes out. I couldn't handle it. They weren't being honest about anything. Anyways, my husband takes me back to the room because I couldn't keep watching. It was really hard to watch. Husband is like, we need to get to the bottom of this because this isn't making any sense. He finally gets to talk to the student nurse what happened. She was bawling her eyes out when she was talking to my husband. No shame or hate to the student nurse. She had no clue what she was doing. Fully blame this on the nurse. She told the student nurse, get as close as you can to the umbilical cord. The student nurse's head, she thought she's supposed to cut the umbilical cord off underneath the clamp. And apparently the nurse meant the clamp. Get as close as you can to the clamp. The nurse wasn't watching what the student nurse was doing. Also, the student nurse said she had never been taught this in a class before, so she had no idea what she was doing. Student nurse cut my son's umbilical cord as close as he could to his belly button. My husband finally gets like the straight story from the student nurse. Go back to our room. We ask to see his records because we need to make sure they have it in right, and they have the record in his medical history as his umbilical cord started oozing. That's all it says. It doesn't say a student nurse accidentally cut below his cord. It was like they knew what happened and they were trying to hide it. Also, the nurse told all of the other nurses around the fake story, so all of the nurses there were defending her. There was one nurse that came in and apologized for defending the other nurse because she had no clue how bad it was until she saw my son. So basically everything ended up being okay, except we went home with our son not having an umbilical cord. Never had an umbilical cord fall off. He literally just had little stitches on his belly button holding everything together. It was like the high risk of infection, so stressful. Already being worried, a new mom, worried, figuring it out, and then on top of it, having this whole new incident happen that I have to figure out and worry about. So we've met with the doctor who did his procedure a few times since then, and it seems like everything has healed fine. One of the most traumatic things of my entire life. You're a new mom, or you're about to have your baby, or you don't know that you're allowed to tell nurses you do not want a student nurse in the room, student nurse helping, you're allowed to. I am never ever letting a student nurse touch or handle my baby ever again. This is no hate to student nurses. No, they're supposed to learn, but that's my story. Hope that helps anyone. I know it would have helped me. Love you guys.